Hello, welcome back to the second part of the fasting videos. In my previous video, I promised to give you some tips and hints how I approach fasting in my clinic. And I also explained how great fasting is with the cell rejuvenation and the longevity and the boost of metabolism and the growth hormone improvements and metabolic improvements. So fasting is really a well and truly wonderful thing to happen. And if you haven't watched the video, I highly recommend watching the fasting video to understand what's actually happening during fasting. And in this video, I just give you some ideas how I approach the fasting with my patients. And I also have a couple of patients talking about what they have experienced and how they went through the fasting. So again, in this video, I explain how I approach it. There are certainly so many other possibilities how to achieve prolonged fasting and how to do it. There's so many varieties of fasting. And in this video, I really say or I explain how I do it. So it's still work in progress. I'm still learning from and with my patients a lot. And as of February 2020, this is how I have evolved to do the fasting method, how I personally have evolved and how I evolved with my patients. So maybe in a couple of years' time I do it differently, but this is how I do it at the moment. So here, when I talk about fasting, I'm meaning not eating. You can certainly fast from so many other things. Until recently, I had an involuntary fast from my mobile phone. So I mowed over it and I didn't have a phone for 4 weeks. And it was actually a nice fast. I'll probably do that again, just not mowing over my phone all the time. But here we talk about non-eating. And there's so many different types of fasting. You can have time-restricted eating, where you have a 6, 4, or 10-hour eating window where you eat something, and then you have the fasting time. But technically, every time you're not eating, you are pretty much fasting. And there's lots of methods to get there and how to do it comfortably. So in theory, everyone can fast. But if you are used to a Australian standard or American standard diet, then which is rich in carbohydrates, it's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable because the regular intake of carbohydrate-rich foods will keep you hungry, and it's going to be very uncomfortable. So what I usually say to my patients is it's a bit like walking over a gravel field or a rocky road. So everyone can walk over it barefooted. It's going to be uncomfortable. Or we just put shoes on first and then actually enjoying the walk. And that's how I put on shoes on my patients. So fasting is usually not the first thing I do in my clinic. So often we need to address metabolic problems, metabolic disorders to keep going. And often the microbiome needs a little bit of rehabilitation. So without a functional microbiome, it's really hard to go for the fast sort of easy. Sometimes we need to address inflammatory conditions first, and we also need to rehabilitate the mitochondria by themselves. So without functioning, or at least half-functioning mitochondria, fasting is going to be uncomfortable. Having said that, a low-carb diet in itself is a very good rehabilitation program for mitochondria as well as the gut microbiome. So my patients are usually on a well-formulated low-carb, high-fat diet, which means they're rich in nutrient-dense foods. They have reestablished their levels or their stores for vitamins and minerals. So they're usually in a much better health by just having a low-carb diet. They should also be very comfortable with a low-carb lifestyle. So they should know how much carbs they put into their mouth with each food. So I often have them calculating carbohydrates and try to stay under a certain limit. So that's all part of the awareness process. What am I going to put into my mouth? And by having a really good low-carb diet, which can be either leaning towards the carnivore direction or the vegetarian direction. So there's all forms are possible, whatever anyone is sort of happy to deal with and whatever their lifestyle is and whenever they have any sort of food intolerances which need to be ruled out first. So, but in general, my patients are on really high nutrient foods to get them prepared to get their body well prepared for fast. My patients also should be very familiar with the concept of not eating when not hungry and eat when they're hungry. It sounds very easy on the surface, but many patients need quite a fair bit of mental sort of preparation to actually do that. Many people just eat because the clock is telling them to eat, because they always had something to eat at a specific time, at a specific sort of or in a specific environment. So we often train our Pavlov's reflex that certain situations, certain circumstances, locations trigger the urge to eat, or certain times, even though they're not hungry. And tuning into your body, like listening to your body, am I hungry for food? Or am I hungry because the bell is ringing and my Pavlov's reflex is telling me, oh, I'm hungry now, but in reality, we're not hungry. So that's a little bit of a process which takes time for some. Other people are easing into it quite easy, and within a day or two, it's like, oh, I'm not really that hungry. That's fine. I'm not going to eat. But some people, they just need a little bit longer to actually realize it's not hunger what I'm experiencing right now. It's my body wanting some soothing, or wanting some activity, or wanting some dopamine. My brain wants to have some dopamine to feel good, and it's actually not the hunger. So that's a bit of a process which I feel is quite important to go along, because not eating when not hungry is not as easy as it may seem. It's really like tuning into your body, and that will help a lot if you do a prolonged fast. It also helps when you're in ketosis for a little while. So ketosis means your body is fat adapted, and your body is quite happy to utilize what's there. That's why the body put it there in the first place. So that the body's not really struggling with that sort of swap between glucose metabolism and fat metabolism. So the body is just burning fat all the time, and it's not really much of a difference if I burn the fat from the food, or if the body is burning the fat from my own fat, and that's what we ultimately want, so that the body is actually utilizing what's there. And some people are just not suitable for prolonged fast. And when I say prolonged fast, I'm usually talking about more than 24 hours. So it's certainly pregnant women shouldn't fast for more than 24 hours. Teenagers or breastfeeding women shouldn't fast. Or if you have any sort of eating disorder. There's just no good evidence out there that a teenager or breastfeeding or a pregnant woman have any benefits from it. But again, the research is really lacking behind a little bit when it comes to fasting. So maybe there are benefits, but they're not really established yet. So far it hasn't been shown that these population groups fast longer for 24 hours. So a good start is time-restricted eating. And I usually give the long-term goal that patients try to have 2 meals a day, preferably with no snacking in between, in an 8-hour time window. So that can be any time. It could be 10 o'clock in the morning for the first meal and 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the second meal. Again, the times are completely arbitrary. So everyone can do that, whatever they feel it suits into their life, into their family life, into their work life, whatever. The point is really trying to restrict the eating in an 8-hour window, which gives you 16 hours of fasting. And of course, you can have a great chunk of this fasting at nighttime when you're sleeping, so you don't have to think about it. So that's a fairly good start. So an 8 to 16, 8-hour time window, preferably with no snacks in between. So then gradually, you can try to close that window from 8 hours down to 6 hours, and you can nip at either end, an hour here or an hour there, but try to decrease that eating window. Still try not to snack in between. So you have those 2 distinct meals, and you also have the benefits of fasting between those meals. And again, if someone is more hungry and say, okay, just have larger meals, it's not about calorie consumption, it's about carbohydrate consumption. So if you're still hungry, eat more, right? Or if you can't make it to the next meal, we'll have a keto snack in between. So I really don't think that someone should suffering and then push themselves and say, I can't eat until whenever, and then they're completely stressed out about it. That completely defeats the purpose. So that's not what I want. So just try to have these 2 distinct meals, and if you need a snack in between, well, so be it. Sometimes we are a bit more hungry because we're a bit more stressed, we have more things going on over the day, but the ultimate goal is really having those 2 distinct meals, preferably with no snacks in between, but don't blame yourself or don't work yourself up over it if you have a snack in between. That's fine. And again, you gradually and slowly, you decrease that time window of eating and push it down to 4 hours as everyone feels comfortable. Really, no pressure, no push. Just do it gradually and easy. And really tuning into your body and only eat when you're hungry. That helps big time to actually eat less over the day. And again, everyone is different. Everyone is sort of has to overcome their own little habits and preconceptions and all of that. Some people eat in there very easy and they just have one meal a day quite easily, and others it takes a while to overcome that anxiety that they don't have to eat 3 meals a day. So it should be a very gradual and comfortable process. So I'm very, very big on it needs to be fun, it needs to be easy, otherwise it's not sustainable. If we do something which we don't enjoy, it's usually set up for failure. So gradually, the vast majority of my patients end up on OMAD or 1 meal a day. That's a very gradual and sort of natural process. If they're really tuned into their bodies and if they really only eat when they're hungry, that's how I ended up very naturally, and I'm having only 1 meal a day for quite a while, and I'm just absolutely fine. I'm just not missing it anymore. So again, it should be gradual and slow. And having 23 hours of fasting is a good chunk of fasting. This 1 meal a day doesn't have to be as big as 3 meals in one go. So it's not. So my meals are actually relatively modest. So I don't think that I have heaps and heaps of food. I just eat until I'm full and then I stop. So 23 hours of fasting is pretty good. So you get a little bit of autophagy, you get a little bit of stem cell activation, you get a little bit of growth hormone, you get a little bit of all of this sort of regular cleaning out, and that's pretty good. So if you haven't watched the other video, just have a look and find out what all of these things are. But 23 hours usually is a good cleanup, usually gives you a little bit of benefits of all of this in a very decent way. But sometimes people just need a little bit more. And who are those people? Sometimes, as a diabetic, for example, your insulin is gone, your medications are gone, everything is perfect, your diet is perfect, we address the stress, you address the sleep, and you should be in a perfect shape, but it's just that little bit of remaining diabetes where the insulin levels are just not as low as they should be, or the sugar levels are just not as low as they should be. And then fasting is a bit like a reset. The fasting really helps to reset the metabolism and clean everything out and give that body that extra time to do its own right thing. And the same with blood pressure. So most of my patients come off blood pressure medications relatively easy. It's a bit of a longer process compared to diabetes. Diabetes seems to disappear like very quick. And I always feel like I'm in a race with my diabetic patients. Blood pressure tends to normalize a little bit slower. So I'm not feeling I'm racing against all of this all the time. But sometimes it's that tiny remaining little bit mistakes that are just not quite right. So then prolonged fasting really, really helps, especially when you have a prolonged fasting time on a regular basis. Sometimes people just still struggle with inflammatory conditions or autoimmune conditions. And then giving the body that extra time for a couple of days to just really clean itself out, get rid of all that junk, detoxify thoroughly, that really significantly improves all these sort of chronic pain conditions and rheumatoid conditions. So that extra bit of time beyond 23 hours or 24 hours really, really helps. Sometimes weight is stagnating. So most of my patients, I think on average, they lose about 10 kilos per month. Some only 6, some lose 12. So it's really like, I think 10 kilos per month is a good average. And sometimes it just stagnates. It just is really, really stubborn. It just, the scale is just not giving in, right? And then we just introduce a bit of fasting on a regular basis, and that is a little bit of a reset again, the metabolism. It speeds up the metabolism a little bit more. Remember, fasting actually increases the metabolism. It doesn't decrease the metabolism. I say all of that in my other video. So sometimes that's needed. But when I say fasting for weight loss, I not mean that we lose an enormous amount of weight with the fast, because when we burn our own fat is very dense in calories, aka energy. So it's not that we lose enormous amount of fat by just not eating. But what it does, it resets the metabolism, and the effects of weight loss are usually seen after the fasting, when the metabolism just gets that extra kick. Some people still struggle with cravings, and yes, it is a little bit of a journey to change that relationship with food we're having. And I'm a carb craver, totally. I'm 100% guilty. I actually want to do a video about carb addiction, because it is a thing, it is a big deal. And sometimes when I've been sort of slack and, Christmas was there, or Easter, or whatever family things or whatever festive occasions there were, and I'm falling back and I had a couple of carbs, I fall back. And I struggle to come off it. It takes me a few weeks to just come off it. I feel miserable, I feel horrible when I'm diverting from my keto lifestyle, and yet I'm struggling to get off it. What helps me is really a few days of fasting, and that sort of completely resets it, and it's again like a reset button. And some people just do it for the fun of it, and that's my main motivation, apart from overcoming my cravings, which creep in every now and then, just doing it for the benefits. And having been dug into the science about the benefits of fasting, I just do it because of that. And let me tell you, it feels good. You feel rejuvenated, you feel energetic, you feel just fantastic. If you don't believe me, just do it yourself, or listen to my patients at the end of the video. So some people just do it for the fun of it. But yet again, you have lots of metabolic benefits from that as well. So here's the starting platform, 1 meal a day, which could be pretty much any time of the day. Again, most people end up quite naturally there, without stress, without anything. But for some people, it is then doing the next step and increasing the fasting time beyond 23 or 24 hours. It's a mental hurdle. And just skipping breakfast. Some people have breakfast in the morning, that's their only 1 meal a day, or they have dinner, and it doesn't really matter when you have your meal. But just that idea of skipping breakfast can freak some people out. And it's very reassuring to know, hey, your liver serves you breakfast every morning. So if you're diabetic and you measure your blood sugar levels, you will notice that your morning levels are always a little bit higher. And that's your body preparing you for the day. So you're waking up, or your body knows when you're waking up, your cortisol levels are going higher. Cortisol levels increase the blood sugars by telling the liver, hey, make some breakfast. So your liver serves you breakfast every morning. That's reassuring in itself. So then you can go on a regime where you fast between 16 and 32 hours. So again, some people just struggle with the idea of not eating for more than a day. You could have a meal at 10 o'clock in the morning and then don't have the next meal until 6 o'clock next day. And then next morning at 10 o'clock and then 6 o'clock next day. Again, these times are completely arbitrary, so you can do it whatever time you like. But then at least you have a meal every day, and that eases you into, it's like a soft warm up for prolonged fasting. And 32 hours is a decent chunk of fasting. That's actually quite long, and you have quite a fair bit of benefits from just 32 hours of fasting. But then that sort of mental burden of not eating for more than a day, which actually is, but it takes it away. So you eat every day. And once you realize, man, I fasted for 32 hours, that's great. And that often motivates people to do longer. They know they can do it. They have that confidence in themselves because actually they fast longer than 24 hours, which is a day. So sometimes people need that. And other times they just do quite easy. So they have been on 1 meal a day for quite a while. And then skipping that next day is really easy, particularly when your body is used to utilize the fat. So when you're well fat adapted, it is very easy to just skip a day. So that gives you 48 hours of fasting, and that's a really decent chunk of fasting. That gives you quite a fair bit of benefits. So that's a really, really good sort of easing into it. And again, most of my patients, they feel quite happy. They have noticed, wow, I can do this. And they have learned, am I actually hungry? I mean, hungry for nutrients, or am I just, is my Pavlov's reflex just playing tricks on me? Yes, of course, you will be a little bit hungry, especially when you come around that time of the day when you normally have something. And our ghrelin levels, which is our hunger hormone, responds to that. If you eat 10 o'clock every day or 12 o'clock or whatever time it will be, your ghrelin level will go up. It's like, hello, normally I eat something. What's up here? And it's often like a matter of just keeping yourself busy, keep on going with your day, and the hunger level will disappear. You will not get more hungry and more hungry. And that's what most of my patients have realized. They're just fine. So now talking about 3 days. That's like, woohoo. There are people that fast for much longer, like 5 days, 7 days, 14 days. But for the homemade fasting kind of approach, I say, okay, 3 days is probably safe, and that's okay to do it at home. Having said that, I came across people that have fasted 7 days because they really felt good about it, and they didn't have any clinical supervision. So I guess there's a possibility, but for safety reasons, I say stick to 3 days, and you will be fine. And yes, there are actually fasting clinics where people fast for more than 40 days and longer. And there's really, really good research into this. When you just fast for 1 week, twice a year, that reduces your lifetime risk of getting cancer by 80% because you get that complete clean out, that complete rejuvenation, and it makes you really, really resilient. It makes your cells resilient, your immune system gets a huge boost. So that's absolutely fantastic. So yes, people do fast for a little bit longer, but significantly longer. But 3 days is probably a really good thing. I still recommend doing it in cooperation with a low-carb practitioner, or at least with a GP that's not afraid of fasting, at least a GP that doesn't believe that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So if you think 3 days is like, whoo, that's quite a long time, let me introduce you to Angus Barbieri. So that's a Scotsman who was just simply sick of being overweight. And this guy just spontaneously decided, I'm not eating anymore. Like, I'm fat, I don't want to eat anymore, that's it. So he started doing it. And of course, all these beautiful mechanisms kicked in, and he wasn't hungry, he felt good, he felt fantastic. So after a week or two, he thought, maybe I should check in with a doctor. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. But of course, he actually experienced all the beautiful benefits and all the feel-good stuff, all the feel-good hormones which you get when you fast. So he checked into Merrifield Hospital, and the doctors there went like, what's happening here? So maybe you shouldn't fast for this long, but we just keep an eye on you. So he had regular blood tests done, he had his blood pressure taken, he got all sort of vital signs taken, and of course he started taking some vitamins and minerals. And he said, whoa, I don't give a damn. I feel good. So he didn't listen to his doctors, and he just kept going. So, and the doctors were like, yeah, all right. So, okay, we keep an eye on you. So he ended up fasting for 382 days. That's more than a year. So a year and almost 3 weeks, right? And he was fine. So at some point, the doctors gave up, convincing him that he should stop fasting because they could see all his bloods are perfect, his vital signs are perfect. He is okay. He is healthy. He's in a good shape. And yeah, so on the left side or on the right side, you can see how he looked after over a year of fasting. And he actually made it into the Guinness Book of Records. He's had the longest fast ever, but he had enough fuel as well. He just burned off what his body was storing there for the bad times. And another good thing, he didn't have these sort of massive problems of all these sort of skin overlaps. Yes, his skin was a little bit loose, but it wasn't that he had this huge excess skin. Why? Because through autophagy, his body was taking the proteins from all those skin tissues, which he doesn't need it anymore, all these extra proteins, which you don't need, which is part of the process of autophagy. So, yeah, if you want to go into the Guinness Book of Records for fasting, it doesn't work anymore because they put a no to it. They just have been afraid to encourage unhealthy behavior. And fair enough, there are probably a couple of geeks out there who think, oh, okay, I just do it, and they have other problems. So, but yeah, here, this is Angus with the world record holder of the longest fasting days. So if you think 3 days is a long time, think again. 300, over 300, nearly 400 days is much longer. So what can you do during the fast? I always say water, water, water. Really keep your fluid intake up. As you clean out and as your kidney gets unblocked, you'll lose water and minerals. So have a lot of water. You will be a little bit more thirsty as well. Have it with salt, have lime or lemon juice in it to make it a bit more tasty. Black coffee or tea is okay as well, I say without the milk, because the proteins and the fat in the milk will turn off all the beautiful processes of fasting, because it elevates the mTORs and the insulin levels, telling your body, hey, there's food coming in, we can stop cleaning out. So we should process that first. So some people have bone broth, and I personally do that as well. If you have it homemade, then it's basically a lot more richer in minerals. And sometimes the bone broth is more like, okay, I have the illusion I have a meal, and it sort of soothes everything a little bit. It's nice to have a warm electrolyte soup, which is basically what it is in my tummy, and it feels better. Some people, that's not what I recommend, but some people have a couple of days where they have massive caloric restriction. And short-term calorie restriction can be beneficial. But I found, so at first it turns off autophagy, it turns off stem cell mobilization, it turns off growth hormone, it turns off lots of really good mechanisms when you eat something, because proteins and fat are coming in some way or form, or carbs maybe, and that sort of turns the whole process off and you lose all the benefits. So short-term calorie restriction can be beneficial for some metabolic issues, and it has its benefits, but it's not really fasting. So I'm not a big fan of it, and because what I also noticed, when people eat only a small amount of foods, it triggers hunger, and it sort of makes the whole process much less enjoyable, where if you don't even start eating, if you just keep fasting, it's so much easier. But there are some proponents of temporary calorie restriction out there, and yes, they do have their results as well, but it's not as significant, and it's the well and truly sort of molecular benefits with the autophagy and the stem cell regeneration and all of that. It's sort of much more profound if you completely fast, if you just have a water fast. What about vitamins? So all the fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K should be up to scratch. Your liver should have stored everything what you need. So your liver should have it all well in check for all the fat-soluble vitamins. And normally, if the stores are full, that should last you a month. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. Sometimes, if your diet wasn't top-notch before you start fasting, your water-soluble vitamins can go down a little bit, and then just have a vitamin capsule. But usually, if your diet was really well and high in nutrients, vitamins, and minerals before you start fasting, in terms of vitamins, just a short 3-day fast shouldn't be much of an issue. So what about minerals? So definitely yes. During a fast, I always recommend having minerals with it. And it can be just that salt in the glass of water with that lime juice or lemon juice mixed together. So I always recommend have Himalayan salt or rock salt. Don't go for the sea salt, because first you get a whole bunch of plastic with it. Yes, you heard me right. You consume a whole bunch of plastic when you have sea salt. But if you have rock salt, you always have other minerals in it as well. For example, magnesium. So I recommend taking some minerals with the fast. So it can be either in form of the bone broth, or you have a mineral powder. Just make sure when you buy some minerals, buy the keto version. You don't want to have any glucose in your mineral powders in them, because that's not what you want. The glucose will turn everything off. And often when you have mineral capsules, which has a couple of minerals in there or trace elements, then you often have multivitamins mixed with it. Have the multivitamin tablet, a little bit more vitamins don't really make much of a difference. So here we are. Fasting is like a reset button. Get that kickstart for your metabolism. Get that kickstart to finally lose those last 5 or 10 kilograms. Get a kickstart to reboost your metabolism and get that blood sugar under control. Get that blood pressure under control. So that's often really like reboot and restart. So that's what fasting is good for. And again, it is like, it helps with the craving. It helps with so many things. And not to forget, it is a liberation in itself. So I come from a lifestyle where I had 3 meals a day and snacks in between because I was a carb loader. I was eating lots of carbs, and the carbohydrates kept me hungry. I was hungry all day long. I was eating, and I was always concerned about the food. So when I went somewhere, do I have enough food? Do I have enough snacks with me? Am I going to be hungry? It was a big worry of mine. And just knowing I can go 4 days easy without any food is just so liberating in itself. Some people that have lots of spiritual sort of awakenings, and they just feel really good and they have actually time to be with themselves. For me, it was very liberating just to know whatever happens, I can easily go for 4 days at least. So I haven't fasted longer than 4 days, but I can easily do 4 days. I can go for a long weekend somewhere. I don't even have to pack any food. I don't have to worry about it. Shops are closed. Well, don't worry, have a fasting day. So that in itself, I found it very, very liberating and freeing myself up from that sort of constant food anxiety. So in summary, I would say, take it easy. Put your shoes on first. Move to a fast gradually and listen to your body. Really follow your body signs. That's really, really important. Don't try to fast when you're having any stress situations coming up. So you don't want to do it just before an exam or something else comes up, or before your wedding or whatever, or whatever it is. So just do it as it fits into your lifestyle. Start small, fast first. You don't have to go for the full 3 days in one go. Just try 32 hours first and see how you deal with 48 hours. And again, a shorter fast on a frequent, more regular basis is so much more, or can have lots of benefits in the same way as you have a 3-day fast. Prepare your environment. Prepare your people, that live with you and your workmates, your family. Because some of my patients found what's hard is like the constant nagging of other people. You need to eat. What? You're not going to eating? Oh my God, something bad is going to happen to you. So that makes it harder. And if some people are used to you just eat only once a day, they're not really noticing if you skip that one meal. And again, it should fit into your lifestyle. It should be fun. There shouldn't be any pressure. There shouldn't be any stress associated with it. And just enjoy the ride. And now I would like to have my patients, telling you what they have experienced, what problems they had. So they consented to share their experience with you guys, and enjoy listening to them.
The first one, mine was a little bit like an accidental one too, but then the one where I tried it, I found it easy actually, because I'd gone into just eating from, my meals were starting at like 2 o'clock in the day. The only thing I did find I struggled with was if I had an argument with my partner or something, and then I'd sort of go off and sulk and I'd forget what I was doing and I'd start eating at the wrong time and that. But doing the fast itself was easier than I thought it would be. But I also had the bone broth with it, so I relied on the bone broth and the water. It was good. So bone broth, without bone broth, maybe I would have struggled the first few times, but yeah, I liked it. I actually liked it. Yeah. Oh shit, man! Now am I going to do this? At first, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I said to you, I was real positive. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I can do that. Like this, and I sort of I walked, like when I left, I was like, oh man, am I going to be able to? But when it came to it, and I had my mind ready, I set my time, I set my day, and it was easy. Yeah. It wasn't like, I think if you said to me, Debbie, you've got to do this, and you've got this set time, and you've got that day to do it, I wouldn't know. But because I thought, okay, there's no rush, I can do this at my time. Yeah, and it does make you feel good. Oh, this is going to be a bit hard for me to remember. I did journal things. 36 hours was one. And I think, and how many, I can't work out, 36 hours works out in days. Day and a half, something like that, yeah. But then I think I went into a 2-day one too. Yeah, I think 40 hours would have been the longest one, yeah. But that's by my choice, and eventually, like, I'm going to start going a little bit longer because I know I could go longer now. Yeah, for sure. As long as I have my broth and my water, I'm right. The broth's more or less like it's a trick to me, really. I don't need it, but it's a trick. It just tells me, yeah, you're eating something, but you do pass that level of where you even think of the food. You don't worry about it.
You were one of the ones that helped get me to the point where I could actually do a 3-day fast, because that first time I tried, I was concerned about my sugar dropping, and you reassured me that I had come as far as I had, and that if I were going to have that sort of an issue, it would have happened before trying that. So the next time I tried, I actually achieved a 3-day fast, which I was pretty impressed with, and it was not that hard. Yeah, no, I think, as other people have said, as long as you have something to keep you occupied, so that you're not actually focusing on the fact that you're not eating, because we've had it sort of instilled in our brains for so many years. You have to eat, you have to eat. If you don't eat, you'll get sick and you'll die. And that's not actually right. Pretty excited, actually. I was pretty excited. I actually finished my fast at work, and I had a goal in mind that it would be about lunchtime. I had prepared something for lunch, and my friend just turned around and she said, "Are you going to eat today?" And I went, "Actually, I am." And she said, "Thank goodness for that." She said, "I don't know how you've done it." And I said, "It wasn't that hard."
The hardest part was when I tried to go for the 3-day fast. I really felt I got inside my own head, and I taught myself into how hard it was, but it wasn't as hard as it really I was making it. Once I played some mind games with myself and decided that it wasn't hard and I was helping myself out, and I did it easily. I've fasted, I did once a week for probably 5 months. I've done 2 or 3 2-day fasts and a 3-day fast. The first day, by the time you're ready to eat, you think, yes, I'm hungry. Am I hungry? And by the time you talk yourself out that you're not hungry, yeah, you feel all right. By the time you get to the 3rd day, your mindset completely changes.
I hope you found this useful. Maybe you feel encouraged to do a fast yourself. If you know someone, or if you feel like it could be beneficial for someone else, just please share the video around. If you haven't watched the video about fasting and the physiology behind fasting, I'll link the video. And in that video, you'll also find in the description box all the scientific evidence behind fasting. So if you don't believe me, be my guest and check out the research behind it. And if you're not familiar with a keto lifestyle, I have another video, how to do keto. Hopefully you find some useful information in there. You have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.